When I was about 8 years old, my mother said something to me which I've never forgotten. And she has no memory of even saying it, but I've never forgotten it, and I know once you hear what it is, you'll know that an 8-year-old didn't come up with it. And she said that getting into a new job is like getting into a marriage. You just never know what you're getting into until you're actually in it. For example, you don't know if your spouse is never going to put the cap back on the toothpaste. You don't know if you're going to become a golf widow. You don't know if it's no big deal to them to buy 2 Starbucks venti cappuccinos a day and you skip them because you want to save the money. You just don't know until you're in it. And the same thing is true when you start a new job. You don't know if the boss that seemed like they were going to be perfect for you turns out to be horrendous, or if the work they give you or that the assignment you're given is totally different than what was described. You just don't know until you're in it. And the same thing applies to when you're integrating a lateral recruit. This is a seasoned professional who has some book of business. You don't know what you're getting. It looks great. They look like they're going to fill that spot on the org chart. It's going to be perfect, but you don't know until they are in that chair at the desk in your firm, and they don't know what they've gotten themselves into until they are there either. So you may be among the firms who has integrated a lateral recruit, brought on a lateral on board, and then realized 3 months later, 6 months later, this is just not going to work out. And by the end of the year, they're gone. And the same thing is the lateral may have said, you know what, this isn't what I thought it was, I'm gone, and they've left with their own dashed hopes. And over the years, we've watched a lot of firms go through this. It's a very costly process. There's out-of-pocket expense, there's angst. But what's always puzzled me is that it always seems like if marketing and business development, if the tools of marketing and business development had been used more effectively, there would have been a greatly increased potential that this relationship could have been saved. And that really the cost of the marketing and business development aspects pale relative to the other costs. So today what we're going to be talking about is how your firm can use marketing and business development to weave the lateral into the fabric of your firm so that they deliver on the potential that you saw in them and you deliver on the potential they saw in you. So welcome to Integrating Laterals Means Integrating Marketing. I'm Sharon Berman, Principal of Burbank Corporation, Marketing and Public Relations. We specialize in working with professional service businesses, and we create the visibility and credibility that fuel revenue growth. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, if you could hold them to the end, that'd be great. You could submit them through your online form that you should see on the screen. Okay. Let's talk about why are we talking about marketing and business development now? It's not new. Why are we talking about how it relates to integrating your laterals? One thing is, right now, every aspect of a law firm's processes are being re-examined. For example, legal project management has become a very hot area, where everything that law firms have been doing, and this also applies to CPA firms, it applies to financial firms. Every aspect of a firm is being re-examined now to see how it can be more efficient, how more can be squeezed out of it. The status quo, whether you're an insurance brokerage firm, whether you're a CPA firm, whether you're a law firm, the status quo won't work anymore. And because it's harder and harder to find a competitive advantage, what you're looking for is the little advantages that add up to the bigger advantages. So if you can be more effective in integrating your recruits and keeping them, you're going to be way ahead of the game. So that's just one reason, or among the reasons that you want to be doing this right now. Okay, let's talk about the dollars. When you're bringing on a lateral, the idea is increased revenue. Hopefully increased profitability with that, but let's just look at the big picture, increased revenue. That's your goal. That's why you've gone to the bother. we all know the cost to recruit this lateral. You have headhunter expense. You have the time you and your partners have put in to debate, should we bring them on? Do we need them? Is this the right person? Maybe instead of Sally, we should bring on Harry. The brain power that goes into this is to me, much more, costs much more than the out-of-pocket expenses. And then you have their ramp-up time once they're in. They're not, they're not producing the kind of revenue you expect day one. That might be months down the line. So you have that cost where you're subsidizing them, these tremendous costs. And then if it doesn't work out, and actually this bar here, should be probably the highest bar, because the distraction, the distress, and the disruption when somebody isn't working out, when this lateral isn't working out, or you say, you know what, they are just not fitting in, the anxiety, the meetings, the talking to your own lawyers, there's just tremendous anxiety. What are we going to tell the media? That sort of thing. So that's, to me, the highest cost. But when you look at what really the marketing and business development costs are in relationship to all of these, they're minor, and the benefits they can produce can be significant. So, and that can be whether you have an internal marketing department, or whether you have an agency, or no matter what, they just don't go anywhere near the cost of what it's going to be, the other expenses. Okay, so let's talk about a few definitions here, because this is really important when we get into this a little bit more. When you're talking about marketing, you are talking about developing leads. Marketing is the red carpet that you roll out in order to generate qualified leads. And that can be a range of tactics. That is your online marketing, it's your seminars, it's your public relations. All of that is done to generate qualified leads, and that's important to keep in mind. Marketing is not measured in terms of increased revenue. That's the ultimate goal, but there's an interim step, and that step is your business development. Your business development is sales, basically, and I know a lot of firms don't like the word sales, but that's what it is. Marketing generates the leads. Sales, your business development, is what you do with those leads once you're in front of them. So if you're generating a lot of leads, great leads, but they're not being converted into new business, then something's wrong. That means your people don't know how to sell, they don't know how to close. There's something wrong there, and that's what you need to examine. So it's very important to keep this in mind, because we're going to be talking about measurement in a minute. Sometimes business development is called client relation development. It's, watered down terms because firms are just afraid to say sales. But that's really what we're talking about here. So it's important to keep in mind these two aspects. Okay. So before you even have this lateral come in day one, you have to figure out, how are you going to know if this is working? And that's what a lot of firms don't stop and do. They think, okay, well, if we bring this person on, maybe we can increase our energy practice by 15%, and what does that mean in terms of top-line revenue? But they don't think, how are we going to know if this is really working? What do we need to measure? We need to measure what kind of leads are being generated by our marketing department working with this lateral, or working with the practice group that they join, or whatever the nomenclature is in your firm. So what are you measuring? And then you look at measuring sales. Okay, are they bringing in new work, or are you getting increased work from your current clients because there's more penetration? You have this person with a different practice area who can expand what you provide your client. So you have to determine what you are measuring, and do you have the systems in place to measure it? That's really important, because a lot of firms don't have that in place. They don't know. They may track where their new business comes from, or they may have that on their form, their intake form, and sometimes it's filled out and sometimes it's not, and nobody ever goes back and aggregates the data. But you have to figure out what you're measuring, so you know what systems you're going to have, you need in place, and you have to make sure they're there. You know, this is just foundational material, and you can't get much farther without it. Are you being realistic? Develop the goals or the measurements, and have your conservative measurement and have your stretch measurement, but you want to be realistic. You know, I've heard a lot of firms talk about, well, what we're going to accomplish in the first 6 months. Well, it takes, I don't have to tell you how long. We all know how long it takes to get anything new in marketing or business development ramped up and to start seeing results. And then, okay, you're going to have to, you know that you're going to have to monitor this and modify it as you go along. But these are really important to be thinking about before the person even walks in the door. Okay, another thing that you need to be thinking about before they even walk in the door is who's going to make this work? I mean, this is not, somebody has to be responsible and accountable for making other people responsible and accountable. What we'd like to see is an integration strike force. This can be your managing partner, or it can be the practice group leader, or it can be you know, the head of your audit group, or whatever, and maybe your executive, you know, director, your executive administrator, the lateral itself, and marketing. A key person from marketing and business development needs to be included in this. So, but you have to put this team together, decide on who, decide on how often you're going to come together, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in person, how often you're going to meet to really monitor what's going on so that you can modify. And it's not that you have a meeting before somebody comes, the lateral comes on, and then nobody looks at it for 6 months until things are going downhill. So there has to be a determination of who is going to be responsible to, as Tim Gunn says here, make it work, and a commitment to that. We are all busy. That's another reason this falls through the cracks a lot, and it's nobody's fault. It's just we're busy, and unless there is a what's the word? I can't think of it, but a real effort, you know, a commitment to an effort to make this work, it falls through the cracks. So it's really important to determine who's going to be responsible for making this work, for integrating, making sure this lateral is integrated into your firm. Okay. So let's talk about the foundation, how it's going to happen. When the lateral walks in the door that day, on their desk, what they already should have is a schedule of their meetings. The meetings with different leaders of your various industry groups, your practice groups, maybe other offices, what the schedule is to visit other offices if you have other offices. Anybody they need to meet on the outside. There should be a draft of a press release for them to review. Now maybe it's already gone out, maybe the word has gotten out before they've joined, but if not, there should be that draft of the press release on their desk, which presumes that they've already provided, you or somebody else has already provided marketing and PR with a draft of their bio and some words about why this is so great. There should be a draft of the announcement for them. And these may seem like really basics, but I have to tell you, some of these are big stumbling blocks. For example, we got a call maybe last month from somebody, an attorney in Texas, who said, look, I've been here 8 months. The announcement hasn't gone out yet. They can't seem to get it out the door. I'm really frustrated, and I got the go-ahead to get somebody else outside to help. So, and that's why they were calling us, to help with increasing their visibility and just helping to market them, because they said the firm has just said, you know, and you already have this disgruntled lateral saying, you know, the firm isn't giving me what they said they would. Now she's taking care of herself, but this happens frequently, that simple things like an announcement don't get out the door. The website biography, they should have a draft of the website biography so you can get that up right away. They should have a draft of their LinkedIn profile, or you should at least have their password so that you can update the material. They should have an appointment for their headshot. Where are they supposed to go for their headshot? So it's not 3 months later where you're still, you know, oh God, I never figured out who the photographer is. And somebody should be thinking about giving the photographer directions. Maybe the last time the firm had its headshots was taken a year ago, and this is a different photographer. Somebody, I'm going over the little details because that's what's overlooked. Is somebody saying to the photographer, all the, look on the website, they all have blue backgrounds. We want this photo to look the same. So somebody needs to be thinking about these details. And then, are there copies of your firm's marketing materials on the desk also? Most likely, this Lateral received all this material when they were being recruited. Excuse me one minute. But it has a different meaning now when they're actually in the firm and they can look at the material. So copies of the firm's marketing materials. This all needs to be thought of in advance. If you want to hit the ground running and you want to demonstrate your commitment to this Lateral, to have this all organized on their desk and say, hey, boom, 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 this is what's going to happen, can make a tremendous impression, as opposed to, you know what, I've got to figure out where I get your desk chair from. Okay. Another key part of this should be meeting with your internal or external marketing department, your marketing agency, so that they can understand what kind of material they have to work with, how they can start thinking about marketing this Lateral, and we'll talk a lot more about who marketing is to, but there should be some sort of marketing cheat sheet along with that. The cheat sheet should be, what do you want the Lateral to know about describing your firm? As opposed to, oh, you know what, they're really nice guys. When he sits down to lunch the first time with people, his colleagues from other firms, they ask him, how's the new firm? Oh, they're really nice guys. Okay, well, that's nice. How about, oh, they are all super lawyers, they're all best lawyers, and, it's not that large a firm, but they are chambers ranked. Isn't that a stronger message than, they have a real estate practice? I mean, you want some sort of communication points. And I heard an attorney on a panel recently speak about his experience in moving from one firm to another. He moved to a larger firm, and he said it was months before he knew how to describe his firm. He just had no idea what they wanted him to say. So this is a really important aspect. How do you want this Lateral to sell your firm? So also, you want marketing and business development to give them an update on the firm's business development activities. Oh, we're having our major energy seminar in a few months. We just had a seminar on real estate where, where everybody has LinkedIn profiles, and we work on keeping them up to date, and there are 3 blogs being done by the firm, that sort of thing, because the Lateral may not know, or it may have been touched on when he was interviewing, but who remembers it then? So you want to let them know what's him or her, the Lateral, know what's going on, so they can say, oh, this is how I can help you with that. Let's see. And then you want to, this is overlooked and also, but important, you want to let them know what is the scope of marketing and PR support. And this happens often when we meet with, let's say, a Lateral in a firm, and they'll say, that's great, I'm glad to know about you, but what's the firm's deal with you? How much of your time can I use? What, do I just use as much and beg for forgiveness when somebody says you're using too much? So, or do you have a number of hours, or how does it work? So it's really important to let them know about what they have. So just important things to be thinking about that, once again, are often overlooked. Okay. Now, this is why marketing and business development often falls through the cracks when it comes to a firm. 1 minute, I'm just going to take a sip of water. Because when you're talking about marketing, what marketing are you talking about? There's several aspects, and what happens is it gets mushy, and if you're not delineating in your own mind, okay, right now I'm working on this aspect of marketing or this aspect of marketing, then it gets lost. So let's just to go through, and I don't mean to make your eyes glaze over, but to clarify. You are marketing your firm. First, you want to market your firm to the Laterals clients, and we'll talk about these each. Marketing your firm to the Laterals clients, okay? You want to market the Lateral to the firm's clients, and at the same time, you want to market the Lateral to your firm. Okay? Then there's also, as we move on, you're marketing the lateral to the world as you would market any of your professionals, and you're marketing your firm to the lateral. All of this, everything you're doing is marketing to the, I mean, when you are demonstrating your goodwill and demonstrating that you're delivering on what you said you were going to do, that's marketing your firm to the lateral. So we'll take each of these one by one, but you can see why everybody gets tangled up in marketing, and I think what happens is they get tied in a knot and then it sort of falls apart. So now, before we go through marketing each of these, let me just a couple of rules of thumb. For each of these, you have to determine who's going to be responsible, who's going to make it happen. Okay, who is responsible for making sure that other people are accountable on this? Who's going to be making the introductions? I mean, that makes a big difference if you have a managing partner make the introductions versus, or your managing director versus having, you know, somebody else who doesn't carry as much weight, let's say. You want to be thinking about this is a sales process. This is always a sales process, marketing and sales process. Why your firm? Not just why should they choose your firm? Why? What are the reasons for you to even be there? And who is going to follow up? That's in terms of responsible, because the follow-up is where it all happens. Usually it doesn't happen at the first meeting. It's the follow-up that's going to make or break this and make it successful or not make it successful. Okay, so let's take first, marketing your firm to the Laterals clients. This is the first thing you want to hit, right? Because they hopefully will come over, or a lot of them will come over to your firm. Number one, you want to avoid the presumption that they are going to come over. I have heard clients say that they don't like it when it's like there's presumption from either the Lateral or your firm that they are going to come over. So that's one thing. You want to be wooing them. Okay, this is a wooing process. It's not something that you're going to feel that they're definitely going to come over, because sometimes Laterals make promises to a firm that, oh, you know, they're all going to follow me, but he or she hasn't talked to the client, and when they feel like it's presumed that they're just going to follow, that you know, the whole process can fall apart. The other thing is, you want to be working on this right away, because change, this Lateral has moved from his old firm to the new firm. That's change. That means a chink in the armor. It means it's an opportunity for the clients to say, you know what, I'm not sure this relationship is going as well as we thought. Maybe this is the time to stop the work, or, you know, I've been thinking about getting somebody else to do our firm's taxes. You know, I think right now we're going to put on the pause button. So there's a chink in the armor, and you want to act right away. When you're talking to the Laterals clients, it's a sales call. It's what you're deciding who is going to be making the introduction, and whoever that is, whoever the sales team is, whether it's your managing director and one of the principals, it's why your firm, and it's a sales call. So you want to be wooing the Laterals clients. Okay, that's one aspect here, but number one is to avoid presuming that they're going to come over, because that is deadly. Okay, so you're marketing the Lateral to the firm's clients, because let's say you brought this Lateral on, you saw there was a gap, maybe you needed a geothermal person, and somebody with a book of business, and because your clients were saying, well, you guys know energy, but do you know geothermal? I mean, that's sort of a stretch example, but you understand what I'm saying. So this is often where it falls apart again. Number one, you want to review your client roster and decide who the targets are. It's a more challenging process because it also involves cross-selling. You have to get maybe the relationship partner on board with making the introduction of the Lateral, and we'll be talking more about this. But so we all know in firms there are fiefdoms, there's territories, no matter how collegial the firms are. So it's also having to get other people on board with this. Once again, who's going to make the introduction and who's going to do the follow-up. And marketing the Lateral to the firm's clients seems to be a no-brainer, but I can't tell you how often, 6 months after the Laterals come on or a year later, the we're sitting in meetings and the powers that be are saying, you know what, we said we were going to review our client roster to see who we should introduce them to, and we haven't done that yet, or we did it once and nobody followed through. It's a no-brainer. It's obvious. It's where the low-hanging fruit is, but I can't tell you how often it doesn't happen. So you want to be keeping that in mind in terms of focusing on it. Okay, you're also marketing the lateral to the firm. I mean, you market as a lateral to the firm when you're making the decision about whether to bring them on board or not. But now that they're here, you really have to remarket, because it's different once they're here, and then people might feel threatened, or they might feel like, how much money does this mean out of my pocket, or whatever. So it's marketing the lateral to the firm. A memo going out, which sometimes is overlooked, an opportunity for the lateral to make a presentation to the firm members. Is there a retreat coming up? Can you do it via Skype? Your next management meeting, something where they can just introduce themselves to the firm members. Who is going to be the champion to facilitate the introductions and the relationship building with the other partners and principals in the firm? Somebody has to make sure that happens. One thing to be thinking about is to be promoting the successes, especially the cross-selling successes internally to the firm, because that's going to go a long way to getting other people on board. In terms of, you want to be promoting the lateral successes at the same time. You want to be careful walking a fine line. You don't want anybody, to feel jealous or threatened or anything like that. But the ideal is to be promoting any kind of cross-selling successes where you were able to sell the lateral to a current client. And that's so often overlooked, because, as we all know, people may sit on the same floor in offices down the hall from each other, but a lot of times people don't have a chance to talk about what's going on. Another key point is, when I say training your lawyers here, I've heard from more than one lateral coming on board to a new firm that they're hardly in the door when they get calls from the firm's partners saying, can you introduce me to your client? And they'll say, well, does my client have a need for your pension services, or for your ERISA expertise, or for your, project finance expertise? And then the firm partner will say, I don't even know if they have a need, but can you introduce me? I mean, these are stories I hear, so nothing I'm making up. So your lawyers need to know, hey, let the guy get in the door, talk to him, and also do their own research. Does that client have a need? Is there a reason? You don't want, what I've heard clients say, a lateral's clients say, protect me from your new firm. You need to protect me, because I don't want to be inundated. I'm willing to listen if it makes sense, but I don't want to be sold just to be sold. Now, I know for all of you, that's not anything to worry about, but sometimes there are other firms out there where this happens, so I'm just bringing it to everybody's attention. Okay, excuse me 1 minute. Okay, so now we're talking about just marketing the lateral, just as you would talk about marketing the lateral, marketing any of your accountants, insurance professionals, private equity professionals, lawyers, as you would market any of them. You want to be sitting down and identifying the targets. You want to be talking about what their communication points are, what kind of visibility enhancement do they need. I mean, does their LinkedIn profile need to be ramped up? Do they need? Are they looking for speaking engagements? Are they giving a speaking engagement and need to talk about how else they can promote that and leverage it? Do they need credibility enhancement? Should they be ranked in best lawyers, but they're not? Should they be on the recorder's list of top lawyers in California, but they're not? Does their biography read the way it should? I mean, some of these are basics, but determine what they are selling, and does their biography read that way? Does their LinkedIn profile read that way, so that when somebody knows, they know what this person does? How are they consistently communicating with their clients? So this is another aspect of marketing. So you can see we've talked about different aspects of marketing. And you can see why this often falls through the cracks, because unless somebody is going step by step, okay, now we're marketing to the Laterals clients, now we're marketing the Lateral to the firm, now we're marketing the firm to the Lateral, unless somebody is really keeping this in mind and delineating it, it gets mushy, people get wrapped up and tripping, you know, I keep having this image of somebody with a rope tied around their feet, and people get frustrated and it ends up falling apart, and that's where things go wrong, whereas and a Lateral feels that, hey, you made all these promises and nothing is happening, and this other firm is making me better promises, and I think it's time to go. So let's talk about how do we make it happen. This is the role of marketing and business development. This is, you know, if the person who waters the plants in your office can make this happen, that is fine. I don't care who does it. But somebody has to be in charge of making this happen. And that can be your internal marketing department, if you have a strong one. It can be an agency such as ours. It can be a consultant. But somebody has to be charged with taking the initiative, doing this systematically, rounding up different partners and saying, hey, you know what, you said you were going to make the introduction to John at this client, and I'm just following up. Did it happen? What can I do to make it happen? You know, maybe we can meet. Can I introduce you to the, to the Lateral? Do we need to talk about it again? Systematizing in terms of going through step by step the things that we've just talked about, and this is their role and responsibility, where with other departments want to see it happen, but it doesn't come under their job description as much. Marketing or external marketing can help you foster collaboration among the principals, your partners, your associates, and they are the ones who are going to get it done. So, as I said, if you have somebody else who can get it done, if you have a gung-ho associate who really wants to do this, that's great. Somebody who's going to be listened to, just somebody has to be charged with getting this done. Okay, so we've talked about all the different steps, and I want to get back to my mom for a minute. My mom and her words of wisdom. Her words of wisdom being that starting a new job is just like getting into a marriage. You just don't know what you're getting into until you're there. Similar, when you're bringing on this Lateral recruit, they don't know what they're getting into, and you don't know what you're getting into until they've walked in the door and they're at the desk. My mother is 85. And my dad is 87. They've been married for more than 60 years. And so what I wish for you in your relationship with the Laterals that you were bringing on board is that you have the same success that my parents have had in their relationship. So that concludes our presentation. I would be glad to take any questions. Let's see. I'm looking here. I'm going to put you on mute for 1 minute. Okay. Okay. It looks like there aren't any questions right now, but I'd be happy to answer any questions offline. You can email me. Let's see. Let's just go over here. Oh, I thought about it. We'd love the opportunity to talk with you further. You can reach me at berman@burbay.com, and I look forward to talking with you. Thanks very much for tuning in.